An Immense World by Ed Young is a eye-opening book in many ways. It shows us the different but hidden senses of animals and how they contribute to our understanding of the world, how we've studied them, how we've used them, and how they kind of integrate into our society and why it's important to preserve them, basically. I personally liked reading the book because it made me genuinely appreciate the natural world around me way more than it did before. It made me understand why animals had problems with this. More on that later. To really understand the point of An Immense World, you just have to look at, its table of contents, the things it has in here. It starts by talking about the idea of an umwelt. An umwelt is basically imagining the animal or plant as kind of like a house. It's a house in a way that has windows, and the windows are the only way information can get inside. Every animal has different windows, different tinted windows, different number of windows, and then they use those windows to interact with the world around it. It specifies specifically that there's no such thing as superiority in windows. There's no better house than another house. There's only difference. Each animal has different senses suited to their things. The first thing it talks about is chemicals, smells, and tastes. It talks about how different animals have evolved strange ways to have different chemicals. It talks about how ants can release different chemicals to find their way to things. It talks about why dogs have slits on the sides of their very long noses. It talks about why taste is actually not a very specific or refined sense, whereas smell is in fact way more broad and way more effective than taste is usually. The second chapter talks about light. Light is interesting because very few, developed animals don't have eyes, right? Most animals will have eyes or some way to see light, because light is such an excellent tool to see basically everything around you. It's just smooth in a lot of ways. And unlike a lot of different senses, light is it's difficult to be betrayed by light. No one can really trick you that easily because light is just there. Unlike chemicals, where things will purposely do little tricks to kind of fool receptors, you can't really do that for light. It leads into color as well. Color is incredibly important because, for example, humans have 3 different types of cones to see different wavelengths, which is why we don't appear colorblind, whereas we consider dogs or people born with only 2 cones to be colorblind because they can't differentiate between a few colors. Some birds have 4 cones, which means they can see things like ultraviolet and things that we can't. The next ones are all based on touch, pain, heat, the cold, contact, surfaces, vibrations. These things are all related to touch, but they all differ significantly. It even involves things like whiskers, which can sense how air or water is moving around them, why this is very important for a bunch of animals to have, and why humans use it a ton, especially in our hands. The next few, sound and echoes, are more based on our own perception of sound waves. This talks about things like bats using echolocation, dolphins using it in water, whales releasing incredibly deep tones that they discovered in the Cold War to communicate with each other. It talks about the very strange and special adaptation of magnetic fields and electrical fields that sharks will use to sense prey. Birds use magnetic fields to fly over migrations, and how the scientific community had so much difficulty trying to interpret what they're doing. And overall, just throughout these chapters, they basically just talk about how these different senses are involved with different animals and the scientists who had done these things. In the final 2 chapters, it kind of goes more serious, and instead of being informational, it leaves us with a sort of message. It explains the importance of considering every sense at the same time and why it's important to preserve the senses and saving the ecosystem. I would highly recommend reading An Immense World. It's an excellent book in a lot of ways. It has a lot of scientific content, which if you didn't like science before, might be difficult getting in some of the terminology, but it's incredibly fun. There are stories of scientists doing their job and long studies balanced in. There's humor in it as well, so it's not just one boring, continuous information dump. And it very effectively weaves in the messages of difference, not superiority. The idea that it's incredibly important to understand why things are different and how many different ways there can be, and exactly what the purpose of it is, why experience matters, why animals have to be able to sense things that we don't, and why what we should be learning from them. Not learning as in, aha, they can do something we can't, so we should try and copy it. It's not about imitating animals to create better technology. It's about understanding how these animals do things so that we don't miss something that really matters to us. I just highly recommend this for anyone with free time to read. Its messages are incredibly important. It explains why pollution, sensory pollution, lights, annoying sounds can be incredibly damaging to ecosystems, and why we should be bothering to know all of this.